CEO laughed at girl's piano skills. Until he heard this bone-chilling performance at 3 a.m., the office lights flickered like the heartbeat of a dying star, each pulse casting eerie shadows across the polished floor. Laughter echoed, sharp and derisive, as the CEO dismissed the girl by the grand piano. She was just a kid, barely 10, with wild hair and big dreams. She sat there, small and fragile, fingers trembling over the keys, ready to play. But in that cavernous room filled with suits and scornful smirks, no one expected what was about to unfold. Then, as the clock struck 3, something shifted. A chilling silence descended, stilled the jeering voices. The girl began to play. What emerged was not the sweet tinkling of a child's song but a haunting melody, jagged and rich, that wove through the air like the mist curling around a ghost. It was a sound so profound it seemed to crawl under the skin, drawing gasps from the onlookers. Goosebumps rippled along their arms. How is she doing this? Someone whispered, eyes wide in disbelief. The shadows in the room thickened, the atmosphere crackled with an unnameable tension. As the notes flowed, they twisted and turned, each one heavy with emotion, evoking forgotten memories and profound fears. The CEO, hardened by years of ruthless business, felt a lump form in his throat. That girl, with her innocent demeanor, was crafting a spell. She played like she was channeling ancient spirits through her fingers. The laughter faded, replaced with pulses of recognition and dread. It was too perfect, too eerie, a performance that beckoned from the edge of the abyss, but just as they were drawn into the depths of her summoned sorcery, the final chord hit like a thunderclap, hanging heavy in the air. The room erupted into a symphony of gasps. What just happened? Echoed the stunned silence, mingled with hushed murmurs of fear and awe. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But just then, laughter erupted again, this time intertwined with genuine fear. The CEO felt a chill snake down his spine. He wasn't laughing anymore. The air turned electric with anticipation. Did she summon something with that music? The girl simply stopped, her eyes wide, staring at the piano as if it had whispered a secret only she could hear. What dark connection had they just uncovered? The tension crackled in the room, and as she removed her hands from the keys, a shadow flickered across the wall, a fleeting moment that felt far too alive. What else lurked in the shadows of this girl's incredible talent? The room fell silent, suffocated by an unexplainable weight, as every eye uneasily rested on the girl. Her small frame almost seemed swallowed by the grand piano, as if she had become part of it, a haunting reminder of what they had just witnessed. No one had any words, just cold stares, the laughter evaporating into thin air, replaced by a quickening dread. Outside, the city was asleep, but inside the boardroom, an unnatural tension hummed. The CEO, previously a pillar of confidence, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His face, usually flushed with authority, had drained of color, leaving him looking fragile. The others whispered in low tones, a mix of bafflement and fear. The tone of disbelief thickened in the air. Who the hell was that girl? Someone muttered, and the question lingered like a cloud of smoke. The girl remained frozen, hands hovering above the keys. The air crackled like static, and if anyone dared to breathe, it felt as though the very molecules would shatter the stillness. Shadows danced around her, weaving in and out of sight, as if alive energies that writhed in response to her performance. What had she unleashed? Suddenly, the lights flickered again, buzzed menacingly, and a window rattled as if a gust of wind had swept through. The audience stiffened, eyes darting nervously. The CEO finally broke the silence, his voice a sharp whisper that cut through the tension. What were you playing? He asked, half accusing, half intrigued. The girl turned her head slowly to meet his gaze, and for the first time, something flickered within the depths of her eyes. It was a glimmer of understanding, or perhaps recognition. It's not what I played, it's what played through me, she replied, her voice barely audible yet devastatingly clear. The words hung heavily, weaving a thread between them that was both eerie and electrifying. He needed to know what she meant, for the music had stirred something ancient in the room, a memory long forgotten. The little girl seemed to hold answers that swirled beneath the surface like a roiling tide. The CEO, a man who's weathered all kinds of storms, felt like a child once more, confronting the unknown. "What do you mean?" He pressed on, compelled by curiosity and a flickering spark of fear, but before she could respond, a chilling noise erupted from the corner of the room. Glass shattered against the wall, splattering in shards like diamonds falling to the floor. Everyone recoiled, sinking into an instinctual dread. The girl's expression didn't change. She kept staring, focused, as if entranced by unseen forces. With a rush of wind that was inexplicable, a dark figure formed in the corner, curling and winding through the gathered crowd until all eyes were fixed in horror. "You have awakened her," a voice hissed, trailing through the air like smoke. It was a sound that echoed with sorrow, with anger, and with something far more sinister. The atmosphere thickened as they all felt the reality of their own frailty, tangled in the web of something they could not comprehend. The CEO's hands were clenched tight, dread pooling in the pit of his stomach. Who had the girl summoned, and what did it want? As the shadow danced closer, the room began to resonate with an ancient melody, the same eerie tune that had echoed through the night. The boundaries between the known and the unknown blurred, leaving them teetering on the edge of a deep abyss. Still staring at the piano, the girl murmured, "It's not just music." Her whisper faded, the intensity of her gaze piercing through the shadows in a moment that felt suspended in time. What was left unsaid lingered in the air, shimmering with threats of unearthly consequence. "What's coming next?" someone gasped, their voice trembling. Yet before anyone could answer, the last note of the haunting melody echoed again, swirling and spiraling through the room, pulling them deeper into darkness. The question remained. The darkness loomed larger, promising revelation, but also danger. What had they awakened, and would they survive the night? The shadows swirled, tightening their grip around the boardroom, and the air thickened with an intensity that could choke. Eyes wide, the CEO stared at the girl, fear and curiosity colliding within him. What dark power had she brought forth? The room felt alive, vibrating with the echo of that final haunting note. Suddenly, the dark figure shifted, its outline flickering like a flame. "You set it free," it rasped, the voice echoing eerily off the walls. It was deep, almost melodic, yet something about it twisted like a knife. Someone cried out, the sound piercing the stillness. "What do you mean? What did we awaken?" Voices tumbled into chaos as disbelief morphed into panic. The whispers turned to shouts. It was a symphony of fear and confusion, erupting like a storm in the faces of those who once held power. The girl remained still above the keys, seeming to draw energy from the chaos around her. "It's not me," she said again, but this time, her voice was stronger, filled with urgency. "It's the song. You must stop it, before it learns who you are." The CEO, caught between disbelief and instinctive terror, felt sweat trickle down his spine. He glanced at his colleagues, their faces ashen, horror painted in the depths of their eyes. "Stop what?" he managed, feeling helpless, as if he were slowly sinking into a quagmire. "Stop listening!" she shouted, her small frame suddenly erupting with intensity. "It feeds on your fear." Yet even as she spoke, the melody wrapped around them like a vine, slithering through their minds. Each note resonated deeper, twining with their darkest memories, digging in, and pulling forth the terror they kept buried. This was not just music, it was a portal, a link to the shadows that hid within their hearts. "Close your eyes," someone yelled, but the command fell flat against the overpowering sound. Men and women gripped their heads, gasping as visions crashed through them, faces of long-lost loved ones, regret, and choices that led them to this moment of utter despair. The room screeched with the cacophony of raw emotion. People staggered back, eyes squeezed shut, hands flailing in a desperate attempt to escape the entrapment of that treacherous melody. The CEO felt a suffocating fear. This was beyond any boardroom crisis he'd ever faced. It was raw, primal, clawing at his mind like a beast starved for recognition. "Listen closely to her," hissed the shadow, the eerie glow sharpening as it inched closer. "She knows the way back." The girl's voice broke through the chaos, fragile yet unwavering. "To silence the song, you must remember. Face your truths. Only then can you banish what has been awakened." The CEO's heart raced as he wrestled between the pounding dread within and the desperate hope that somehow, they could reclaim their fates. Breath fishy with fear and loathing, he took a step forward. "What truth? Tell us," he demanded, his voice strained, the urge to flee scratching at his soul. The girl's eyes gleamed, swirling pools of infinite knowledge. "Your choices, your regrets, only by confronting them can the shadows retreat. They thrive on your fears and they will consume you." With that, there was a shift. The melody shifted into a haunting crescendo, leaving no corner of the room untouched, no heart unprod. Each note expanded, igniting the lurking secrets begging for recognition. As the darkness threatened to engulf them, fingers trembling, they glanced at one another, a moment of shared understanding, a moment weighed heavy with the knowledge of unresolved truths buried deep. Would they dare? Would they confront their fears, their regrets? In that moment of pregnant silence, the room felt suspended in time, a precipice on which they all stood, teetering between light and the overwhelming dark, and then, one by one, they began to whisper their secrets, a reluctant sound that started as a tremor but grew, an echo against the insistent melody pulling them ever deeper into a haunting abyss. What lay ahead was uncertain. Would they find redemption, or would the shadows claim them forever? In the stillness that followed, one question loomed, dark and heavy: how much were they willing to sacrifice to silence the music? The whispers filled the room, a cacophony of unveiled remorse echoing in the air. Each confession hung like a lead weight in their chests, taut and intrusive. The CEO's heart drummed, racing against the tide of memories he'd long buried. They were as vivid as the horror that unfolded around them. Years of manipulation, one woman sobbed, her voice quaking. "I sacrificed my integrity for profit. I betrayed my brother," chimed in another, eyes wild. "I closed the door on him and kept the business alive." Each shared pain seemed to ripple through the shadows, a dark energy feeding the disembodied figure lurking in the corner. It watched, hungry, lurking in the edges of the dim light, waiting for the moment their fears could drag them under. "Keep going," the girl urged, steering them away from the abyss. "You're so close. Don't let it take you." Her gaze pierced through the chaos, offering a glimpse of hope amidst the despair. The melody twisted, climbing higher, feeding off their fears, but that flicker in her eyes urged the gathered executives to fight back. "Forgive yourselves," she pleaded as the haunting notes wove a web around them. "This is your chance." Yet as they faced their own truths, the figure grew bolder, its laughter echoing through the room like shards of ice stabbing through flesh. "You think sharing your burdens will free you?" it hissed. "You only strengthen me with each sorrow revealed." It was a twisted game, the stakes rising with each exposed wound. Fingers curled into fists, trembling from the weight of secrets too long held. The air thrummed with electricity, the melody dancing in time with their hearts. The CEO felt a swell of anger. He was not going to be a victim. "I was greedy," he shouted, his voice cutting through the melody like a knife. "I wanted more than I needed. And what did it bring me? Nothing but emptiness." The admission rolled off his tongue, freeing some of the crippling weight that had plagued him. Others began to nod, emboldened. "I bullied. I crushed dreams." A younger man screamed, tears streaming down his face. "I did it to prove I was better." With every revelation, the darkness recoiled, flickering for a moment, uncertainty creeping into the shadow's twisted form. "More," the girl urged, her energy radiating. "You're breaking the bonds. Come on. Join the chorus." A wave of defiance surged through the room. "I rejected help when my family needed it most," a woman cried out. "All out of pride. I lied to my team about my plans. It kept me feeling in control while ruining us." Someone else shouted. Each truth uttered struck the darkness, sending shivers through the air as if it could feel the heat of their revelations. But with every confession came a renewed swell of melody, wrapping them tighter, threatening to drown out their voices. "You're too late," the shadow roared, confusion mingling with rage. "You'll be consumed." The days of fear settled heavy, fingers twitching as panic coursed through the room. Their souls felt exposed, naked under the weight of the haunting melody. But they were no longer whispering secrets. They were standing, raw and bare under the illuminative touch of their own honesty. Together! The girl shouted, her voice carrying through the din. On 3. 1. The CEO felt the tension coil in his gut, fear still gnawing at him. 2. He glanced around desperately. Would they unite in this? Would they harness their collective strength? 3. A chorus of voices rose up, a powerful wave as they joined in unison, confessing their wrongdoings and pain in a harmonious rebellion against the shadows. But the melody reacted, crashing down like a thunderstorm, a rushing force of dread and desperation clawing at the edges of their minds, and in that moment, just as they felt a flicker of victory, the shadows whispered one last thing: you will pay the price for your truths. The words hung in the air like a murky fog, and suddenly the room went cold. What price would they have to pay? With the shadows gathering strength, the question loomed larger than ever. Would their newfound courage shield them from the looming darkness, or would it lead them to an even more twisted fate? As the chilling words echoed in the frigid air, silence draped itself over the room like a heavy blanket. Participants exchanged unsettled glances, their faces pale, lips trembling. Every heartbeat thudded loudly, the once united front now wavering under the weight of uncertainty. What does that even mean? The younger man who had earlier confessed to bullying voiced the question that loomed in the back of everyone's minds. His eyes darted, searching for answers from the looming shadows. The CEO clenched his fists, fighting back the creeping dread that threatened to engulf him. We can't let it intimidate us, he shouted, the fervor in his voice rising. We owe it to ourselves to stand our ground. We've come this far. The girl stepped closer, her eyes fierce and unwavering. You're right. But we must face whatever this is without fear. Fear only strengthens the shadows. A murmur rose among the crowd, igniting a flicker of determination. The melody that once felt suffocating began to shift, becoming almost a steady heartbeat, slow at first, then gaining a rhythm that pulsed with opportunity. But the deep, chilling laughter of the shadow returned, reverberating through the space. Do you think your bravado can shield you? It taunted, each word dripping with scorn. Your own darkness will be your undoing. Light flickered, casting monstrous shapes against the walls. The thought of their truths being twisted back at them was unsettling. Don't listen to it, the girl cried, her spirit seemingly igniting a hope that burned through the gathering gloom. Remember your confessions. They are your strength. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the room, an unearthly vibration that rattled the very foundation. It felt as if the walls might cave in, and with a creeping apprehension, the executives looked at each other, breathing heavy, hearts racing. What if we really do pay a price? Another voice murmured, fear slithering through her words. What if no? The CEO interjected, his voice now laced with desperation. We can't doubt ourselves. We have to believe that facing our past can vanquish this creature. A quiet sense of resolve began to wash over the group again, but the flickering darkness surged aggressively, reaching out with cold tendrils, tendons of despair seeming to claw at their skin. Admit it, the shadow hissed. You really believe you can escape me? Every confession only binds you closer. As if on cue, the melody became dissonant, shrill notes slicing through the air, amplified by the dark entity leaning ever closer. It was a grotesque harmony of pain and loss, enveloping them, threatening to snuff out their fragile resolve. Breathe. Breathe together, the girl urged, her voice cutting through the cacophony. Channel that pain into something powerful. One by one, they began to inhale deeply, feeling the collective energy shift. The shadows wavered, retreating ever so slightly, as though taken aback by the hint of resistance. It was just a crack, but it was enough. Remember, the girl's voice shook with urgency, this is bigger than each one of you. You stand for more than your individual struggles. In that moment, they realized this wasn't just about their confessions anymore. It was about their futures, their legacies, the dark truths, yes, but also the unquenchable hope of redemption. Suddenly, in the eye of the storm where fear momentarily danced away, emerged a haunting tune. The girl sat down almost instinctively at the battered piano, fingers poised over the keys. And she began to play. The haunting melody wrapped around them, dislodging despair and inviting fortitude. It was soft at first, like the first rays of sunlight breaking through a thick forest. A chill ran through the room, compelling them to listen, to bond in this musical embrace. But as the notes cascaded, profound clarity struck. Beneath the graceful keys hid a darker resonance of pent-up suffering, a haunting history of shadows all their own. What happens if she awakens their truths in music? A voice whined from deep in the crowd, a sense of dread pooling, strained notes. Woven intricate tapestry of emotions, urging them to confront their deepest fears. Would they shatter under the weight of collective history? And as the girl played on, the darkness stirred, its form twisting, hungry for their resolve. They all knew they were on the precipice now, a choice that could either liberate or destroy them. As the tension reached its breaking point, the girl's fingers hesitated over the keys. The melody shifted, warping into something unrecognizable, more sinister. What would happen next? Would they rise above together, or would the shadows finally consume? The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Every soul in the room was caught in the snare of the melody, their breaths held tightly, as if they didn't dare breathe in case it shattered the fragile moment. The girl's fingers hovered, trembling over the piano keys as the shadows writhed. She could feel their eyes boring into her, anticipating every note, every tremor within the chords she strummed. Each beat resonated through their bones, echoes of long-buried memories clawing to the surface. As she plunged into the next segment, the music took on a hauntingly beautiful tempo, weaving through heartbeats like silk threads in a tapestry, a dance of grief and salvation. The air swirled with emotion, shifting the dynamics within the room. Hope intertwined with despair, creating an exhilarating tension that flooded their senses, but then a chilling darkness swept in, wrapping its frigid hands around their vulnerabilities. "You think this will save you," the shadow hissed, its voice slithering through the chords, tainting the purity of her playing. "Every note you play only deepens your despair." With a quivering breath, the girl pressed harder on the keys, a defiant spark lit in her eyes. She poured everything into that haunting melody, a blend of joy and pain intermingled in every note. And then, she lifted her gaze to meet the CEO's frantic eyes. "Face it. We are tied to our pasts. But it doesn't have to control us." Her words pierced the air, raw and vehement. One by one, their defenses crumbled as they began to remember their buried truths, each confession igniting flames in their hearts. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, the shadows stretching thicker and more palpable. The laughter grew louder, mocking, "Foolish mortals. You think you can drown me out with your trifles?" The room felt like it was vibrating, an unseen force pushing against their chests, suffocating every ounce of courage. "Keep going!" someone shouted from the back, the voice quaking yet resolute. "We can't let it win." With each passing moment, the girl's melody morphed, each key struck resonating with their collective fears. The music swirled faster, turning frenetic. They felt life surging through them, a surge of clarity battling the encroaching darkness. But the shadows were relentless. They surged forward, creeping in, brushing against their skin, fingers cold as ice. Cries of panic broke out. A woman stumbled backward, terrified, eyes wide. I can't do this." "No!" the girl yelled, her fingers a blur across the piano now. "We are stronger together. Look at what we're fighting for." The shadows seemed to lunge towards the group, as if trying to snuff out their burgeoning hope. Determined, the CEO stepped forward, heart racing. "Listen to her. Our past might haunt us, but it does not define us. We create our futures." As he spoke, the energy in the room shifted, sparks of defiance igniting within them. They took in deep breaths, lighting a fire of unity. The shadows recoiled slightly, faltering in their icy grasp, as the girl struck a powerful chord that resonated deep within. But just as it seemed the balance was shifting, a deep rumble echoed through the floor, a foreshadowing of destruction. The walls vibrated dangerously, the room trembling as everything felt on the edge of collapse. "What if we can't make it?" Another voice quivered in the shadows, the uncertainty sinking back into the collective consciousness. "Do you trust each other?" the girl called out, her voice raw yet unyielding. Silence fell, heavy with tension. Would they choose to stand united, or would doubt lead them to failure? As the shadows surged and retreated, a piercing light flickered just beyond the darkness, a beacon of hope. Could they grasp it before it vanished? What awaited them beyond the next note? Would courage pave the way, or would shadows pull them under for good? The moment stretched, everything hanging by a fraying thread. The girl's heart raced as she played, her fingers dancing over the keys with a feverish intensity. Each note felt like a heartbeat, striking against the encroaching silence, demanding to be heard, demanding to echo against the shadows that lurked around her. The room pulsed with anxious energy. Faces were illuminated by flickers of light, reflecting a chaotic blend of emotions: fear, hope, despair. But as the shadows slithered closer, their feelings began blending into something more potent: anger. They remembered the weight of their burdens. The shadows had twisted their lives for far too long. Together! The girl urged, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. She could see the CEO's face, a mix of horror and determination. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the back of the room, a crumpled figure staggering forward. It was the woman who had faltered earlier, her eyes wild and wide. "I can't!" she shrieked, a raw edge in her voice. "I don't have the strength, none of us do." "No!" the girl interjected, relentless. "You do. We all do. Just look inside." One by one, they began to take shaky steps toward the piano, gathering near the instrument like moths drawn to a flame. The shadows writhed, furious at this gathering of strength. The CEO stepped beside the girl, his voice solid like granite. "We will not be silenced by the past anymore," he said, and to her surprise, others began to echo him, voices overlapping in strength. "We will not be silenced." In that moment, as their voices harmonized, the shadows recoiled. A fissure of light pierced through the darkness, illuminating the girl's determined face, and the piano turned into a sanctuary of sound. The haunting melody shifted into something ferocious: a battle cry. Each note burst from the piano with a raw, primal energy, resonating with the hard-won truths of the gathered souls. The girl felt the power surge through her, lifting her spirit higher and higher, igniting their spirits with every strike of the key. However, the shadows roared back, emboldened by their anger. They lashed out violently, seizing any flicker of doubt, pulling at the threads of hope woven through the melody. "This is futile," the voice hissed, almost a snarl. "You cannot win against your own past." "Shut up!" someone shouted defiantly, and a wave of energy surged through them, amplifying their resolve. The music adjusted, bending and twisting, transforming into a triumphant anthem. An embrace of pain turned into liberation. But then, the crescendo fell into a deadly silence. One moment of stillness. One breath. Behind you a whisper floated from the crowd, drawing gasps as the shadows gathered again, coiling like snakes ready to strike. The girl turned and froze, her heart pounding hard against her ribcage. The entity's face could barely be discerned through the dark, but its eyes glowed with a malevolence that sent a chill racing down her spine. There it was, solidifying in the dim light, the embodiment of their fears. It reached out, tendrils of shadow curling ominously towards her, testing the resolve they had just built. Had they truly come this far only to fall back into despair? With a quick glance back at the group, she saw their eyes brimming with determination. They couldn't back down now. Could they summon enough courage to confront the darkness together? Or would they let their fears swallow them whole? The next moment was a critical turning point, teetering precariously. Would they embrace the light and drive the shadows away? Or had they awakened a force they couldn't hope to defeat? Time seemed to stretch as they prepared for the fight of their lives, their shared fear hanging heavy in the air. The shadows lunged, and with it came a deafening silence. What would happen next? Would they stand and fight, or would silence claim them forever? The shadows surged forward, a dark wave threatening to consume everything in its path. The girl felt an electric jolt of fear grip her throat, nearly choking her voice. But then, she saw the faces of the others, reflecting the fire ignited by her music. They wouldn't back down. "Now!" she shouted, her voice breaking through the thickening darkness. With one more deep breath, she pressed her fingers down hard on the keys, unleashing a sonic roar that vibrated through the very air, pulling everyone into a whirlwind of sound. "Fight!" the CEO bellowed, his voice carrying a strange, newfound confidence. Others echoed him, their voices intertwining with hers, creating a tapestry of defiance. The music shifted again, tears of pain transforming into an anthem of resurgence. It was a lightning bolt of emotions, surging through the room as they rallied against the tightening coils of fear. The dark entity twisted, its eyes flaring brighter in rage, extending shadowy fingers like claws, reaching for the girl. "Don't let it in!" she cried, urgency dripping from each word. "Focus on the light." As her fingers struck the piano with unfaltering rhythm, each note took shape, crafting images of hope, joy, and resilience. They were not just sounds, they were weapons of light against the impending darkness. For a fleeting moment, it felt like they pulled the shadows back. The room erupted with energy, voices rising as they took deeper breaths, channeling strength into each crescendo. "Keep going!" someone yelled, their voice pushing through the chaos, but the entity wasn't finished. It drew nearer, the darkness humming as the shadows retaliated with a sudden fury. Whips of darkness lashed out, teasing the edges of their gathered light. "Your cries are weak," it hissed, gnashing its teeth. "You are still prisoners of your own making." Sickening dread clawed at the girl's heart. Doubts began to surface again, clawing into her resolve. Moments before, they had felt unbreakable, now she wavered, the whispers creeping back in. "No!" She slammed her hands down harder on the keys, letting the reverberations drown out the fears. She needed them to remember why they were here. Feel the music. Let it drown out the shadows. The melody thickened, a blend of fear and defiance layered beneath a rising cadence. It became a tapestry of conflict and strength, fueling their fight. The crowd was electrified, faces swimming into focus as each chord wrapped around them like a protective shield. Then, from among the rushing throes of sound, she made out a distinct voice rising above the rest, a childless voice, pure and clear. "We're not afraid. We are free." It was the tiniest voice, yet it seemed to resonate with the essence of their spirits. Each lyric sang of liberation, twirling with the piano's heartbeat. The shadows hesitated, recoiling slightly, as if caught off guard by the unexpected onslaught. But their moment of hesitation did not last. "Fools!" the entity shrieked, its voice an agonizing wail as it lunged forward. The darkness whipped through the air, shredding at the light with a frantic desperation as it grasped at the heart of their gathering. "Together!" the girl shouted, urging them on. "We have to fight. Together!" But would her plea be enough? As the shadows crashed forward, its terrible howl drowning out the music, everyone's fate hung in the balance. The tug-of-war between fading shadows and soaring hope had reached its final act, teetering on the brink of annihilation. Would they hold strong, banding together to face the darkness, or become yet another tale lost to the whispering shadows? The pounding of the piano melded with her heartbeat, right at the edge of an abyss of silence. This was the moment they had to seize. And then, there it was. A flicker of light deep within the shadows, brilliant and unyielding. But could they grasp it before it vanished? Would this glimmer break the chains, or would they be swallowed whole, one final time? The room shuddered with an intensity that throbbed in the air, a silent scream echoing as darkness clashed with light. Every face around the girl shimmered with fear and determination. A ripple of power surged from the piano, intertwining with their collective spirit. They were a force fragile yet fierce, standing firm against the onslaught. But the shadows surged again, howling like a wild wind. "You are nothing. Just echoes of your own despair." The entity's voice slithered through their defenses, poison seeping into their resolve. "Your light can't protect you. You're still bound to your chains." The girl's heart raced. Memories of doubt, pain, and hopelessness threatened to steal her voice. She fought against the tide, pressing her fingers down as hard as she could, the notes bursting forth like a cannonade, a desperate plea for salvation. It was all or nothing. Your power lies in your unity. We must remember who we are. She shouted, every word gripping the hearts of her companions. Encouraged, they leaned closer together, their voices lifting like a swarm of fireflies, fueling her melody with their courage. Yet the darkness bore down on them, wrapping around their legs, pulling them toward a bottomless abyss. One by one, doubt flared in their eyes. Would they succumb to despair? Would the shadows claim them? Just when it seemed the light might flicker and extinguish, a voice broke through the cacophony, striking a chord in the girl's heart. I won T let go. It was the child again, her voice cracking through the dark like a brilliant beam of sunlight through storm clouds. We are not afraid. I have my friends. Energy swelled in the room. The girl's fingers danced across the keys, channeling the child's infectious hope. The melody amplified, each note a chainbreaker, each rhythm a new dawn. Yes. We are more than our shadows. Her voice soared, merging with the music. More than they want us to believe. For a moment, the shadows hesitated, the darkness flickering before a wave of fiery sound. They recoiled as unity transformed into strength, the notes coiling tightly around them, a protective barrier of light. But then, with a terrifying shriek, the entity unleashed its fury, the shadows thrashing with newfound violence. You think you're stronger? I will rip apart your bonds. The room trembled beneath its rage, walls shaking as darkness lashed out, striking like lightning. The girl felt a chill touch her spine, her heart beating like a war drum. Panic surged, and she choked back a scream. Don't let the darkness win. Someone cried, breaking into her thoughts, igniting a blaze of determination. Keep going. We can't lose. With each note played, every person present felt their souls intertwine deeper, pulling strength from one another like roots beneath a storm-tossed tree. The girl leaned into the music, urging it to swell, to grow, to break through the oppressive shrouds suffocating them. A chorus rose, voices pushing against the encroaching shadows. But even as the mingled voices filled the air, the dark entity surged forward, eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. Enough! You are mine! And then, that flicker of light deep in the shadows flickered again, more vibrant, pulsing like a heartbeat. Was it strength, or merely a final trick of the darkness? Could they grasp it before the entity engulfed them, or would they fade into the abyss, lost forever to despair? Time seemed to freeze as the darkness closed in, tightening its grip around their hopes. Would they stand together long enough to challenge the encroaching void? All seemed lost, until the girl glimpsed a shadowy figure at the edge of the light. Someone was approaching. But was it friend or foe? The shadows loomed, a thick haze swirling around the girl and her companions. Every breath felt heavier as darkness wrapped its fingers around their minds. But there, just beyond the gloom, something stirred. She sensed it, a pulse, a flicker of light that danced defiantly amidst the chaos. The child's voice rang out once more, "We won T let you win." Her heart soared as those words took root in her mind like a warm flame. With a sudden determination, the girl tightened her grip over the piano keys. The melody surged anew, blasting through the oppressive air like a cannon. The music was raw and wild, laced with hope, defiance, and a promise to rise against despair. Together! She commanded, and the room echoed with renewed energy. Light broke through the darkness as shimmering notes spiraled upward, the harmonious symphony pushing against the shadows. Each face in the crowd lit up, emboldened by the music, their fears reflected and stripped away in the girl's notes. Yes! The CEO shouted, catching the spark of rebellion. We are the sum of our dreams, not our chains. With each confession and shared truth, the darkness wavered and hissed, but the girl pressed forward. Her fingers moved frenetically over the keys, unleashing torrents of sound that coursed through the room, inciting courage where once only fear dwelled. We are more than we admitted it, echoed voices, swelling in unison. The shadows recoiled, hesitation flickering in their jagged forms. Come on, fight back! The girl yelled, her eyes fierce. This isn't just my battle, it's ours. Keep pushing. The air pulsed with resistance, their united strength quaking against the looming doom. The dark figure shrieked, its voice a twisted lament. You cannot stop me. I am your own darkness. But they were no longer just manifestations of their fears. They were a collective force, a choir of defiance. We face you together. They roared. You can't drown our spirit. We can choose differently. The crescendo swelled, throwing their vulnerabilities back in the shadows' faces, turning the chilling whisper of despair into a powerful anthem of resilience. Then, in a final act of defiance, the girl began to play a new melody, a mix of sorrow and triumph, vibrating with raw emotion. Each note carved out space in the oppressive dark. With every chord, their fears combusted, transforming into an illumination stronger than the darkness could withstand. From the edge of the shadows, a golden light fractured, tendrils of brightness bursting forward. With a surge of fury, the shadows reared back, thrashing wildly. "You think you can erase me?" But the girl-less melody rang louder and more fiercely, sending shockwaves through the gathering gloom. "We won, be silenced." The light broke, slashing through the darkness, and for a heart-stopping moment, it felt like the shadows hesitated, like they were caught in the wake of something much greater than themselves. "Finish it!" the CEO shouted, rallying the group around him. And together, they pushed forward, drawing from that incandescent light radiating like a beacon of hope. With one final strike, the girl pounded the keys, and the last notes roared out, exploding into the very fabric of the room. The shadows howled, an agonizing wail echoing as they splintered and evaporated into nothingness. Silence enveloped the space, a deep, cleansing hush that lingered like the gentle aftermath of a storm. Slowly, light flooded back into the room as flickers of warmth dispersed the lingering chill. The tension faded, and a sense of calm washed over them as they came to terms with what had just unfolded. Each person turned to one another, faces bright with realization and relief. They had faced their fears, together, and emerged victorious. The girl, still at the piano, stared up with wide eyes, a mix of disbelief and triumph swirling within her. "Did we really?" "Yeah," the CEO said, breathless, "we did. But it was you who led us back to the light." A small smile broke through her apprehensive expression. Pride blossomed from the shared experience, an unbreakable bond forged through their darkest moments. As they began to share soft laughter and congratulations, the girl noticed something significant. Her fingers, now resting on the keys, no longer trembled. They felt strong, purposeful. "Thank you for believing," she whispered more to herself than anyone. And as they gathered in a circle, weaving their stories together, the girl realized they had not only fought the darkness, they had uncovered a part of themselves that had long been untapped. The room transformed into a sanctuary of light and strength, with echoes of laughter and newfound hope bouncing off the walls. They faced the abyss and won. But this was just the beginning, so don't miss out on more incredible stories like this. You need to subscribe now, right this second. Smash that like button and help the algorithm keep these epic tales alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, theories, or even what you'd confess. Let's dive deeper together. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this powerful conclusion. Thank you later.